Allison had always thought healing would come like a thunderclap, loud, sudden, impossible to ignore. Instead, it came in fragments, in moments so small she barely noticed them. A laugh at a joke from a coworker. The taste of coffee on a chilly morning walk. The way her muscles remembered the rhythm of running after years of neglect. These were not grand victories, but they were pieces of something slowly rebuilding inside her. Yet the ordinary days were the hardest. The days without distraction, without Claire's chatter or the adrenaline of pushing her body to run again. Those days dragged like anchors tied to her ankles, pulling her into the past. It was on one of those days, a Tuesday, that Allison found herself sitting in her office, staring blankly at her computer screen. She worked as a content editor for an online magazine, a job that paid the bills but rarely lit a spark in her. She used to imagine herself doing something more creative, like painting or writing essays, but David had been practical, and she had followed his lead. Stability had seemed safer than risk. Now, staring at the blinking cursor, she wondered how much of her life had been shaped by him, and how much she had willingly surrendered. At lunch, she walked to the park near her office with her notebook in hand. She had started carrying it everywhere, like a talisman against emptiness. Sitting on a bench, she wrote, "I don't even know what parts of me were mine, and what parts were built around him." The thought unsettled her. It was one thing to mourn love, it was another to realize she had let it swallow her whole. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her spiral. A text from her coworker, Natalie, popped up, "Drinks after work. You in?" Allison hesitated. She usually declined, retreating into her apartment where silence felt safer than forced socializing. But something in her refused to keep shrinking. "Okay," she replied. That evening, she found herself at a crowded bar downtown. The music was loud, the air thick with laughter and overlapping conversations. Natalie waved her over, introducing her to a group of friends Allison had never met. At first, she felt like a ghost at the table, nodding politely, sipping her drink too quickly. But as the night wore on, she surprised herself by joining the conversation, talking about books, about the city, even making a joke that drew genuine laughter. For a moment, she felt visible again. On the subway ride home, she leaned her head against the cool window and closed her eyes. She didn't think of David once. The progress, however, was not linear. The next morning, Allison woke from a dream where David was standing at the end of her bed, suitcase in hand, smiling like he used to. She woke with tears staining her pillow. The grief returned like a tide, washing away the fragile confidence she had built the night before. At work, she could barely concentrate. Every word on the screen blurred into static. By the time she got home, she collapsed onto the couch, the apartment pressing in around her like a cage. She reached for her phone. For the first time in months, she typed his number into the screen. Her thumb hovered over the call button, her heart pounding. She imagined his voice answering, imagined him saying her name the way he used to. But she didn't press it. Instead, she dropped the phone onto the couch and buried her face in her hands. Her sobs echoed against the walls, raw and unrestrained. She let herself break open, because pretending she wasn't shattered had only made her feel more hollow. The next day, she dragged herself back to the river for a run. Her body resisted, her legs heavy, but she forced herself forward. Each stride felt like defiance. Sweat stung her eyes, her lungs burned, but when she stopped, she screamed into the wind, wordless, guttural, the sound of someone refusing to disappear. A passerby gave her a strange look, but Allison didn't care. For once, she wasn't embarrassed by her pain. She owned it. That weekend, she finally opened her paints. They had been sitting in a box under her bed, untouched since college. She spread an old sheet across the floor, set up a blank canvas, and squeezed out bright streaks of color. The brush felt foreign in her hand at first, clumsy and hesitant. But as the hours passed, shapes and swirls emerged, chaotic but alive. She painted not what she saw, but what she felt, the weight, the anger, the sparks of hope. When she stepped back, the canvas was messy, imperfect, impossible to interpret. But it was hers. She hadn't realized how much she missed creating until that moment. Later that night, Allison sat at her window again, notebook open, paint smudges still on her fingers. She wrote, "Maybe healing isn't about going back to who I was. Maybe it's about finding who I am without him." The silence after midnight didn't feel like punishment anymore. It felt like a blank canvas. And for the first time, she wasn't afraid of what she might create.